Some say these modern Chinese diplomats, who are not shy of confrontational approaches, especially towards the West, are practicing wolf warrior diplomacy. Wait till they find out what Chinese diplomats were like in the past. While you do have pacifistic ones like Zheng He, who sailed to Africa with his treasure fleet without so much as threatening a single state, despite his crew numbering greater than some countries have population. There are others who were less willing to take insults lying down, the most famous being Zhang Qian, whose story is so badass, it deserves a whole series by itself. I will leave it to you to read up if you don't already know, but the diplomat in our story today, while less well known, his exploit nonetheless is not any bit less badass than Zhang Qian. In the 1990s, archaeologists from Sichuan University found a stone in Tibet near Jirong County with 311 words carved on it. Today we call this stone the Da Tang Tianzhu Shi Chu Ming, the epigraph of Wang Xuance. This epigraph records the journey of Wang Xuance's diplomatic mission by the order of Emperor Tang Taizong to India. The departure date of Wang Xuance is of particular interest. You see, 2 years prior to his departure for India in 647 AD, a famous pilgrim to India has just returned to China. He is none other than Xuanzang, the actual person behind the character Tang Sanzang from Journey to the West I briefly talked about 4 videos ago. In the last leg of Xuanzang's 16 or 17 years journey in India, he was particularly well received by King Harshavardhana of Kannauj, who showered him with hospitality and giving Xuanzang a grand send-off when it's time for him to leave India. We do not know the exchanges between Xuanzang and King Harsha, but a year after Xuanzang's return, a diplomatic mission from Kannauj arrived in Xi'an, the then capital of Tang China. As such, the mission of Wang Xuance was a diplomatic quid pro quo from Tang to Kannauj. Unbeknown to Wang Xuance, King Harsha passed away while his entourage was en route to India. According to Indian sources, King Harsha's throne was usurped by a governor named Arunasva. Some even argued that Arunasva actually killed King Harsha and his supporters, which may explain the motive behind why Arunasva intercepted the diplomatic mission of Wang Xuance upon his arrival in India and proceeded to execute all 30 men in the diplomatic entourage, taking Wang Xuance and his deputy as prisoners. Fortuitously, Wang Xuance and his deputy managed to escape, and instead of returning to China, the two headed to Nepal. What were they hoping to achieve in Nepal, you ask? To raise an army for revenge, of course. Miraculously, Wang Xuance managed to raise an army of 7,000 elite cavalry from Nepal and a further 1,200 infantry from King Songtsen Gampo of Tibet. Historical records did not elaborate on how Wang Xuance managed to borrow these troops, but we can infer this from the political circumstances of the time. Nepal was, during this time, a vassal state of the Tibetan Empire due to Songtsen Gampo's help in expelling a usurper to the Nepali throne, while Tibet itself was a tributary of Tang China after Princess Wencheng's marriage to Songtsen Gampo. As for why the disparity in the number and quality of the troops supplied to Wang Xuance, we can only guess the motivations of each state from their respective relationship. Nepal's 7,000 elite cavalry is probably as much as the kingdom could muster, signifying a subservient relationship of Nepal towards Tibet, while Tibet has a tense relationship with Tang that only marginally warmed through marriage. The 1,200 infantry was a token contribution out of courtesy for Princess Wencheng's political arrangement. Now armed with his 8,000 borrowed troops, Wang Xuance marched towards Kannauj. What ensued was 2 battles and a siege, including war elephants on the side of Kannauj and brilliant horse cavalry maneuver by Wang Xuance, ultimately leading to the defeat and capture of Arunasva. Now, truth be told, I had my suspicion on how 8,000 troops managed to lay siege and sack the capital of the Kannauj Empire. But on further research into Tibetan and Chinese sources, other than minor differences in details and perspective, both sources corroborate in order of events, tactics, types of soldiers used, even in the numbers of casualties and prisoners. With Arunasva and his wife and children, along with 10,000 prisoners and 20,000 beasts of burden carrying spoils of war, marched back to Xi'an through Tibet. The fate of Arunasva was not recorded, but needless to say, it wouldn't be a holiday at Xi'an. Now, the reason for Kannauj's defeat could be that the empire was already severely fractured in the events leading up to the usurpation by Arunasva. And it is likely that the Nepalis and Tibetans were mobilizing based on intel and support from factions within the broken Kannauj Empire. Following the defeat, Kannauj plunged into disarray until Yashovarman consolidated the previous territories of Kannauj a century later. As for Wang Xuance, despite achieving the impossible, in spite of the odds, he was promoted from a 7th rank officer to a 5th rank officer in the bureaucracy of Emperor Tang Taizong. Basically, he was elevated from a town magistrate to a county governor. While Wang Xuance's promotion may seem underwhelming, it has to be considered against the context of his time. Tang Dynasty is the absolute height of Chinese dynasty, bar none, and Tang Taizong's reign is probably the pinnacle era of Tang Dynasty. The talents serving under his bureaucracy are numerous, with the likes of generals like Li Jing and Li Shiji that defeated the Eastern Turks, or General Xue Renggui, Hou Junji, Ashina She, and Su Dingfang that defeated the Western Turkic Khaganate, extending Tang control over much of Central Asia. Considering this, Wang Xuance will have to contend with living in the shadows of these giants. With many historical accounts of the glory of Emperor Tang Taizong even omitting to recount the story of how a diplomat turned general single-handedly brought down a kingdom with borrowed troops, no less.